The birth went exactly as they feared, frantic, painful, inhuman. Bella was breaking apart with every passing minute. Edward, Carlisle, Rosalie, they all tried to save her, hold her, stitch her, rebuild her. But in the end, she survived. She woke up with a torn soul, yes, with a stitched, trembling body, but with a beating heart. And in her arms, small, warm, crying strongly, was Renesmee, but not as they had imagined. She didn't have golden eyes, nor iridescent skin, nor inhuman strength, nor accelerated growth. Renesmee was a human child, fragile, warm, with a heart that beat slow and real, rosy skin, and a breath as sweet and fleeting as fresh bread. Bella looked at her. She cried, not out of disappointment, but out of pure relief. "She's alive," she whispered, "and she's ours." Edward wrapped her in a blanket, touched her with marble fingers, trembling for the first time in years. "Human," he said in awe, not as reproach, as a miracle. But the Cullens knew nothing in their world came without consequence. Carlisle was the first to study her blood. Type O, human genetics, no venom traces, no hybrid signs, an impossible pregnancy with an even more impossible outcome. A 100% human child, born from a human mother and a vampire. "This changes everything," murmured Alice, sitting on the stairs, eyes closed. "The visions are blurry. I can't see her." "Because she's not of our world," replied Jasper. "But she's not just of theirs either," said Esme, voice trembling. "She's a bridge." The first months were a garden of wonder and worry. Renesmee cried, laughed, got sick, healed, learned words, loved Rosalie's hugs, Alice's songs, Carlisle's stories, Emmett's shoulder rides. But she remained human. She fell, caught colds, got tired, asked why her family never ate, never slept, never changed. "Mom, are you a vampire too?" she asked one night, eyes full of moonlight. Bella smiled, hugged her. "No, I'm just your mom, and that's enough." Edward watched from the doorway. He knew time was against him. Renesmee would grow. They would not. When she turned 6, she looked 6. Not 15, like in the original timeline. She had no powers, except for a laugh that turned rooms into spring. But the world began to whisper. The Denali knew first, then the Irish Coven, and eventually, the Volturi. Aro wrote a letter, with elegant, dark handwriting. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. "Dear Cullen family, we have heard of a human child born to an immortal father. If true, the matter is extraordinary. We would be pleased to welcome you to Volterra to better understand this phenomenon, for the good of all. With eternal respect." Aro Carlisle read it aloud. The room fell silent. "We can't go," Edward said immediately, "not without knowing what they want." "They don't want to understand her," said Bella. "They want to decide if she should be allowed." That night, Renesmee slept in a room decorated with fairy tales. Books, drawings, stuffed animals. Unaware, they surrounded a child whose very existence could spark a war. Edward entered quietly, sat beside her bed, listened to her breathe. "What if we can't protect her?" Bella came behind him, rested her head on his shoulder. "Then we fight, but we don't let her live afraid of who she is." Alice had a fragmented vision, a white hall, Renesmee in the center, Caius shouting, Jane smiling, Aro with genuine doubt in his eyes. And then, nothing. The vision shattered. "They're going to come," said Alice. "If we don't go, they'll come." The decision was made in the middle of a storm. Carlisle, Bella, Edward, Alice, Emmett, Rosalie, Jasper, they all knew what was at stake. Not just Renesmee's life, but the right for something human to exist in their world without having to apologize. And so, with torn hearts but burning souls, the Cullens prepared. Renesmee fell asleep on the plane, unaware they were flying to Volterra, with her doll in her arms, a flower in her hair, and a human heart beating inside a world never meant for her. Volterra, Italy. The streets seemed carved in shadow. Tourists disappeared when the sun went down, and beneath the ancient marble, the castle slept, waiting. When the Cullens descended into the hidden lobby behind the elevator, the temperature dropped several degrees. Renesmee, in her little black shoes and cream dress, clutched Edward's hand. She didn't cry. She just observed. Everything was new. Everything was stone. "Is this the king's castle?" she asked softly. "Something like that," Bella whispered with a tense smile. On the other side of the doors, the three were waiting. Aro, Marcus, Caius, and at their flanks, the guard, Jane, with her blade-like smile, Alec, like a living shadow, Felix, Dimitri, Renata. When Renesmee entered, the silence was so absolute it seemed suspended. Aro stood up with the slowness of an actor before applause. His cloak brushed the floor, and his eyes stopped on her. "Oh, wonder," he whispered, "an impossible creature, and yet real. Bella, Edward, you have made history." Edward stepped forward immediately. "Renesmee is human, a child, not an experiment, not a precedent." Aro raised a hand. "And yet she is. May I approach?" Renesmee looked at her parents. Bella nodded. Edward, after an eternal second, did too. Aro leaned in. He didn't touch her. He just observed. So alive, so warm, and yet the echo of immortality surrounds her like an invisible mist. Renesmee frowned. "Why is he looking at me like that?" Smiled. "Because you are unique, little flower, and what is unique changes the rules." Caius stood abruptly. "This is no child. It is a crack. If her existence is permitted, what comes next? Herds of hybrids? Children with hunter's blood? This is a threat to the very secrecy of our kind." "She is not a hybrid," Carlyle said calmly. "Her blood is human, her genes human. Only her father was not." Jane stepped forward. "And what happens when she grows? What if her blood causes wars?" Edward intervened. "Her blood isn't addictive. We tested it. It's not like Bella's was for me. It's normal." "But you are not normal," Caius replied. "You'll always protect her. And if she dies, will you unravel? Attack the world for her?" A murmur crossed the hall. Then Aro spoke again. "Let me see, Edward, if you allow me." Edward closed his eyes, approached, let Aro touch his hand. A cascade of images passed through his mind. Renesmee playing with Rosalie, sleeping in Bella's arms, reciting stories with Esme, laughing with Emmett, singing with Alice, her laughter, her tears, her humanity. Aro stayed still for several seconds. When he withdrew his hand, his face had changed. There was no fury, only melancholy. "It is true," he murmured. "This child is no threat. She does not grow quickly. She bears no powers, but she has no place in our world either." Bella stepped forward. "Then we will make her one." "At what cost?" Caius whispered. "That others will try? That humans will dream of children born of darkness?" Aro raised an eyebrow. "No, at the cost of our vigilance, of your commitment." Murmurs, tension. And Aro said, "We will propose a truce. You keep the child's secret. She will never be turned, never shared, never shown, never defended with fire if she were to die. In exchange, we will leave you in peace." Silence fell completely. Edward looked at Bella. Bella at Renesmee. And finally, Edward nodded. "Done." Aro smiled. "Then the impossible lives, and we shall learn to coexist with what we do not understand." Days later, back in Forks, Renesmee ran through the meadow. Bella watched her. Edward played the piano. And for a moment, the world felt right. Not perfect, not eternal, but lived. Renesmee grew as a human, slowly, laughing, getting sick, crying, learning, protected, not as a weapon, but as a quiet miracle. And each time she looked in the mirror, she saw not power, only possibility, because against all odds, her human heart had survived a world of immortals.